Okay, from here we're going to go ahead and continue our coding and generate our LPRifle class and probably go ahead and set up our system to attach the rifle to its player. But first, let's go ahead and save this out. So I'm going to go to File, Save As.
Now, for the naming here, your class.uc file is always named exactly the same as the class itself, meaning that this would be LPRiflePickup.uc.
Okay, so that should take care of that. And with that, we're ready to go ahead and start our next class, which I'll just go ahead and go to File, New, and we'll leave this guy up in the background just in case. So this class is going to be LPRifle, as we mentioned earlier. So let's go ahead and keep things organized like we were earlier.
As a matter of fact, just to save a little bit of time, you could copy that from the comment block.
Well, I'm almost done now.
Oh, yeah, but you know, for that matter, you could probably make a script instead of context to build it.
Absolutely. Okay, I'll go ahead and copy it for later, because we'll probably be doing this a few times. All right, so from here, let's go ahead and jump down one.
Okay, so again, defining this class, well, to define this class, we'll start out by doing class,
Okay.
LPRifle, extends,
All right.
weapon. Now, there's some other stuff that we're going to add to this as well.
All right.
After we say extends weapon, also we're going to put config, and then in parentheses, user.
User. Now, what's this going to do?
Well, what this is going to do is, if you've dug around inside your user ini file, you may have noticed that there's a section for various weapons, and the primary options you have there are like the ability to swap the fire modes. What this is doing is setting it up so that the LPRifle can have that functionality as well, meaning you could go into your user ini and add a section for the LPRifle and swap its fire modes.
Okay, that's cool.
Or anything else that you would want to set up from the user ini file.
All right.
So, now interestingly enough, even though this is you can think of this as the core class for the weapon you're holding, it too is based off of just default properties, as it's still in the end a fairly simple weapon. So we'll start this off with just defining a default properties block.
Okay.
And now we get into some more interesting stuff. The mesh, since for weapon, the draw type's already defined, all I need to say is exactly what we're using to draw.
Okay.
So mesh is going to equal skeletal mesh.
All right.
And then in single quotes, the package dot what mesh we're using, which is LPRifle anim. Again, if you remember from the importing lesson, this is where we save the first and third person models.
And this will be our first person rifle?
Yes, the LPRifle class itself is also responsible for drawing the first person view of the weapon.
Okay.
So with that, now I want to customize the draw scale a little bit. So we'll just set draw scale equal to 0.6.
You got
Again,
it.
if you had brought the weapon in and you had gotten into the coding phase and you want to adjust stuff, there's almost always multiple points you can adjust from. You could always go back to the actual UKX package and adjust the scale from there.
Okay.
Or just set the draw scale from code, especially if you're tweaking everything else through code at the moment.
I suppose you could even, if you were really daring, go all the way back into Maya and fix it.
That's getting a little bit far back.
Yeah. All right, so we've got that taken care of. So what comes next?
The next thing we're going to define is what inventory group this weapon is, meaning what weapon slot, basically.
All right, that makes sense.
So inventory group equals 4, meaning it will take the shock rifle's place.
All right, that's cool.
Or if you have both weapons, you'll actually have to hit the 4 key over and over, whatever your switch weapon 4 key is bound to.
So it's kind of putting it into a category.
That's right.
All right. So where are we going to go from here?
Let's see. After that, we could go and set up the actual item name.
All right.
In this case, let's see. Basically, we'll just say what this is, and we'll just call it a laser pulse rifle.
All right. Laser pulse rifle. Okay.
After that, now we set up some more associations to other classes. We have the fire mode class array with 2 elements, 0 and 1. We'll start off with the first one and set fire mode class 0 to equal a class LPRifle Fire. Again, another class that we haven't gotten to yet in scripting, but we will. This is where we tie into more functionality of the gun.
All right, so this would be like the primary fire of the weapon.
That's right. This is also another example of where a single weapon has been spread across multiple classes for functionality. Here we have everything that could be related to the gun actually primary firing, but this is stored in another class, not in this one.
Okay, and since we're going to have 2 separate modes, I imagine we're going to need another one of these.
For all fire, of course. So fire mode class element 1, again equal to a class, and this time it's going to be LPRifle alt fire. This is also why we're going to have all the classes done before we can test this. Is so many as a weapon is dependent on all its classes being in existence.
Right. A lot of these are interdependent on each other, so we can't just make part of this and test part because so much of this is our main class right here, and it's dependent on everything else being in place and ready to go.
So after that, let's set a few more weapon-related things. How about bob damping?
Okay.
Or bob dampening. This is just a factor of how much it's going to bounce around the screen. Well, actually, before we jump down to that block, I guess there are a few more firing-related things. The pickup class.
All right.
Well, actually, let's talk about this for a second. We have the pickup class already created,
mm-hmm.
but we need to make sure that the weapon itself is aware of that pickup class, because what happens if the player using the weapon dies or throws the weapon? Then a pickup is going to have to be spawned because there is no mesh here in the LP rifle for the gun to be on the ground. There's no static mesh or anything.
That makes sense.
It's going to have to be aware of what the pickup class is so that if it needs to become a pickup again, it knows what to spawn.
So this will go all the way back to our LP rifle pickup.
Yep. So here's the first instance of a class that we already have.
Very cool. All right, so from here, now what?
One last class to associate this with, the third-person view, or what's the property known as the attachment class.
All right.
We're going to set the attachment class equal to yet another class.
And this will be class
LPRifle Attachment. The
Easy
LPRifle
enough.
Attachment will be responsible for drawing as the third person.
And again, this is something we have yet to code.
So now, now let's go ahead and move on to bob dampening. Again,
right.
just a factor to say how much the gun moves around as you're walking or running.
Okay, so like when you notice the gun's kind of waving back and forth when you're playing?
We're going to set that to about 2.
All right, I was kind of ahead of you on that one. Sorry. All right, so from here?
All right, now we're going to set up a little bit of how it draws in the first person.
Okay.
The first thing we'll set is the centered view offset, Y. Basically just the offset for when you're using the weapon centered.
Okay, so centered offset Y, and what's this going to be equal
about
to?
-5.
All right.
Now, next, let's set the player view offset.
Player view offset.
This is going to be if you're just holding the weapon normally,
right.
not centered or anything, and you don't have small weapons turned on.
Okay.
So kind of the base or working position of the gun as you're looking at it.
Okay.
This is going to be, and basically it's stored as a vector, so we're going to have to start parentheses and put 3 components of that in.
Okay.
First component is going to be X, which is equal to 10, and comma,
all right.
Y component. As a matter of fact, I would, just...
Yeah, I know. I hit the space bar out of just nothing but habit. All right, so what's Y going to be equal to?
Y should be equal to 12.
All right.
And Z should be equal to -8.
All right. So, let's see, I can type. I really can. All right.
And again, the amount of decimal points used is pretty much up to you. If you've ever exported classes, you'll notice they have about 6 or so. Leaving them all full together or specifying a few doesn't really make any difference. Just however you want to.
It's just a habit. All right, so...
Now, one last offset we might want to take a look at is the small view offset, or if you have small weapons turned on.
All right.
And again, this is going to be another vector, so we need to have an X, Y, and Z component.
All right, what's X going to be equal to?
X is going to be 16, and Y is going to be equal to 12, and Z is going to be equal to -8. Now, you may be wondering where we came up with these values. Later, when we actually test the weapon out, we can show a way of testing this.
Okay. And then, like, if there was a problem, we could come back here and change this to make sure the gun was in the proper position while we were playing.
Right. There is a way to go in-game and tweak these values. You don't have to keep recompiling over and over again just to test it.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
So, with that, that's pretty much all the properties we need. Again, more properties, but this is more of a central core and fairly complicated class.
Right. This is like the main part of the weapon. This is what drives, actually, most of what's going on with the gun itself.
Yeah, you can think of it as the central piece or the core.
Okay, cool. So with that, that's going to wrap up this lesson.
Actually, we could go ahead and save out the class, too.
Okay, we could do that. Let's save out the class. And again, this needs to be named the same thing. So this will be LPRifle.
So classname.uc or LPRifle.
All right, and you know what? Actually, I'll tell you what. Instead of ending the lesson right here, I know everybody's like, yeah, but I wanted you to be over. Let's go ahead and set up the attachment system, because that should be a relatively short system.
Yes, it's a simple class, and it ties right into this one, basically, if you want to look at it as the core of the weapon. So,
Look at that. I Control-C'd at that time. Aren't you impressed?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So, and actually, I shouldn't have deleted all that stuff. I should have left that there. So, LPRifle, and this will be attachment because that's what we called it earlier.
Right. This is the class we're looking at from the LPRifle. So, to actually go ahead and code this to put it in place, it's going to extend weapon. Let's see. Weapon attach or. Actually, well, the base class is weapon attachment, but I think here we'll extend something that already exists. So we'll say class LPRifle Attachment extends, and instead of weapon attachment, let's extend assault attachment. Simply that way we'll have some of the effects already set up for us. Otherwise, we're going to have to keep track of a lot of stuff.
So this is sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
And that gets just a little bit out of the scope of this video. This is to how you want to like start from scratch, and what are the pieces of a weapon. And getting into everything, like every little effect attached to everything, it's a little bit complex.
Okay.
So we're just going to expand upon the assault attachment, which already has a bit of muzzle flare code set up.
Okay, so this thing will attach basically exactly like the assault rifle.
Right, until we change some stuff.
Until we change some stuff. Okay, that's cool. All right, so down from here, I'm assuming would be some default properties.
Yeah, well, actually, first you could terminate that.
That'd probably be a good idea. So let's get back up there and do some terminating.
Sure, this is going to be fun the first time we compile it all.
I'm sure. I'm sure it's full of errors and things. Okay, so down from here, let's go ahead and set up a block.
Now, let's see. The first thing we want to set is, well, how does it draw? We want to use that third-person model we imported, so we'll simply say mesh equals skeletal mesh, and inside single quotes, LPRifle anim dot LPRifle underscore third.
Okay. All right, gotcha.
And one other thing is the draw scale. Let's just set that to 1.
Alrighty, we'll set this back to 1.
And that should be about it. I mean, inheriting some basic functionality, like just so we have the muzzle flare and other effects set up.
Okay.
Except that we're using our own mesh set to the draw scale of 1.
That makes sense.
And again, this is going to be the third-person view. So basically the weapon that's just going to look like it's stuck to your hand bone in the game.
Okay, so like if we see somebody else running across the screen with our gun, this is what we're going to be looking at.
Technically what we're looking at is the weapon attachment.
Okay, very cool. So really with that, that's actually going to wrap up this lesson. So thanks a lot.